8.1 Human Population Dynamics. So, the first significant idea is that we have a lot of models and indicators to study how our populations are changing through time. So, here we see males and females, and then their respective ages in expanding and stable and declining areas. Actually, Japan is over here now. This is an old one, I guess. Does it say the date? Another significant idea. Well, wait, here's another model. Actually, this is the demographic transition model. So, how population demographics, birth rates, death rates, overall population growth change as countries develop and increase their economic security. Human population growth rates are impacted by a complex range of changing factors. As we become more industrialized, as we develop more better food systems, the population of the earth has been skyrocketing. That's pretty wild. Like back in like what Malthus was like right around here, he's like, oh my god, we're not gonna be able to support anyone on earth. And then we're just like so first understanding, we got different demographic tools for quantifying human population, and I should have a video where I go through how to do all these calculations, so you can check that one out. Maybe I'll post it in the links. Again, crude birth rate and crude death rate, sort of looking at per total population. Total fertility rate is looking at births per woman of childbearing age, right? They're the ones that are fertile. Doubling time, how long your population takes to double, and then natural increase rates, basically like the percent of growth. So here's those calculations if you need to know how to do them. But I got that another video, so I'm not necessarily going to go run through how to do all these again. But I've usually seen like maybe one or two questions about this on exams, like calculate the doubling time for such and such. Global human population has followed a rapid growth curve, but there's uncertainty as to how this is changing. So back in the 1970s, they're like talking about the population bomb and like, oh my God, we're totally screwed. We're gonna have way too many people. This is a really funny scale because we're going like 1 million, 4 million, 10 million, 100 million, 7,000 million. I don't know about this scale. It's logarithmic. You can argue about whether or not you think this is a useful scale to use. But I guess it kind of shows like when you have a larger populations, it's easier to grow faster. So this sort of shows that maybe our population growth has been relatively consistent until maybe very recently. Though a lot of people talking about, oh my God, the population bomb, like there's too many people. That's sort of based on old information about reproduction rates, and most countries in the world have a reproduction rate of just around two, a little bit over two people per couple. So that's basically replacement rate, right? So we're probably fine. As human population grows, increased stress is placed on all the Earth system. Increasing population equals increasing demand for resources, food, soil, nutrients, water, timber. It's really worth pointing out that like different populations use different amounts of resources. And sometimes I feel like it's unfair just to say increasing population equals increasing demand, because you can have an increasing population that has a much smaller ecological footprint, and that could make a lot less of an impact, It's really all about how you're living, not just how many people are living. It's pretty unfair to just say it's because of the number of people when some of them use way more resources than other. Okay. So increased stress on things like soil nutrients, right? So increased stress on water. We have lots of water conflicts around the world. Increased stress on other natural resources, fossil fuels, etc. As we have more urban populations, we have to, support them by building all the cities and then getting all of the resources to those cities and providing them with clean water and shelter and everything else. But yeah, cities are pretty good for concentrating populations and for lessening impact elsewhere. Like you can make really sustainable cities that are really population dense, and then conserve a lot of wild spaces. There was this like super interesting concept by David Brower, who was the president of the Sierra Club. and he's actually the one that gave up Glen Canyon and felt really bad about it after he gave it up. Um, but he wrote a book, and one of his proposals, he was like basically like right now we have national parks and we have wilderness areas, and we like build walls and fences around these wilderness areas. And so his argument is that we should switch that and we should start building walls around our cities and concentrate people in cities and then sort of let the rest of nature be wild and free. And then we're sort of containing people in areas where they are not making an impact. Be pretty wild if that ever happened. I'd be surprised. Um, so we can look at age gender pyramids and demographic transition models to see how countries are changing. So as we mentioned before, Japan is actually over here where they have a really, really small young population and a lot of folks that are entering retirement. And so the big issue here is that how are they going to support all the young people? I have another full video where I go through all of these stages, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But influences on human population dynamics, like pretty much everything, could be cultural, historical, religious, social, political, economic, etc. You might hope that we're just making population decisions based on logic and reason and, trying to be environmentally sound, but like it's hard to argue that religious aspects don't come into play, that economic aspects don't come into play, right? Yeah, a lot of different reasons that people might have more or fewer children. So national and international development policies may also have an impact on human population dynamics. Really cool in Malawi to see all the efforts done at like getting sort of like midwives and having people provide childcare for childbirth. And kind of an interesting thing where like the government's like, oh, you have to go to a hospital now because obviously hospitals are safer, while also not really considering that tons of people live in villages that are miles and miles and miles and miles and miles away from hospitals. How are you ever going to get to a hospital? When we were in Malawi, a woman walked 3 miles to give birth at our birthing center, which was not a hospital and which would have technically been illegal. But that was already 3 miles, right? The hospital itself was probably 20, 30 miles away. It's like just totally unfeasible. So if you want some practice, you could try calculating some CBR and CDR and TFR and DT and NIR if you really want to. You should be able to explain the relative values, what they mean, how they can affect the total population. You should be able to explain like how those trends are changing through time, right? The demographic transition model overall, right? That's an example of models which predict how our population is going to change. Cool. You should be able to explain the nature and implications of growth in human populations. More people, more resources. We need to give them food. We need to have a political system. You should analyze the impact that national and international development policies can have on human population dynamics and growth. Oh, hey, look, it's the Sustainable Development Goals that Caroline is always talking about that we really try to focus on at our school. And you'll probably notice a lot of connections to ESS in here, right? I got some topic 5 stuff. We got some topic 4 stuff. We got some topic 2 and 3. Really great stuff. There should be energy, right? Yep, here's topic 7, energy. Probably something about good error, maybe somewhere. Cool. And then discuss cultural, historical, religious, social, political, economic factors that influence the changing population sizes. Okay, Mr. Kramer, you're the best. Thanks for all these awesome slideshows that I did not have to make.